Hi guys, and welcome back to Bespoke, and welcome back to this MP7 upgrading restoration project. Now, to get started, while we're waiting to be able to source bits like the gearbox, and we've ordered some upgrade parts for this, loads of new nice little shiny bits and pieces. But as we wait for those to get here, because it's obviously going to be a while, we're going to get started on pulling out all the electronics, stripping this thing down, ready to start putting upgrade parts in, sorting the wiring out. We're also going to convert this to run on lipos in the actual handguard section, because I don't really want to run a pet box, because if this is going to be used as a backup to a sniper rifle on this lovely little clip here that clips onto your belt, I don't want it to be bulky. We might put a little red dot sight on there or something like that, or just stick with the irons, because they're going to be in minimum engagement distance anyway. But I didn't really want to be having a pet box put on either the top side or the bottom, because it then makes the gun more bulkier. So I want to get it converted to run like a mini Deans and put lipos in there, so those have been ordered as well. So first of all, we're going to get this thing stripped down and then start getting the components out, and then start planning what we're going to do with the wiring. So let's get to that. First of all, we're going to start stripping this thing off. Now, the sights are already moved out the way of the 3 top screws, so it's going to make it easier to get those off. So we need a 2.5mm Allen key. One, need 2, and this is going to be a great guide as well if you want to strip the electronics out of your MP7. It's going to be pretty much the same process to get it done. So 3 screws off the top. The longest is always the one at the very front of the MP7. We can pull that rail system off now, and what you can actually see is obviously at some point there's a fuse that's gone in this gun, and they've actually fitted like a household 13 amp fuse. Let me just zoom in here so you can see that. So you can see it's just like a normal household 13 amp fuse if you're in the UK. So we're going to get that took out and replaced with a proper 20 amp fuse as well. So now we've got the top rail off, we're actually going to remove the stock system as well. So it's just these 2 screws here, which are a 2mm Allen key fitting. I'm going to take these screws out, and with the amount of little tiny screws you're going to remove on a gun like this, whether you're just doing simple maintenance or you're stripping it down to upgrade or repair, you're going to want somewhere like a mat like this, or something that's magnetic, just so you can put the screws in. It saves you losing them. And then we're just going to tap these pins. And it would have been great to get like a sort of start, a before and after footage of this gun firing, so we could have something to compare the upgrades to. But well, we do have a before and after, but the before is literally non-functional and it does absolutely nothing. So we're going to go from 0 to 100 pretty much straight away. So we're going to be able to pull that stock system out there, but you're going to have to remove this small Phillips screwdriver, small Phillips screw with your screwdriver, which holds the charging handle onto the bolt cover, and then you're literally going to be able to pull this all the way out and then just set the stock to one side. So we're getting there now. Next, what we're probably going to want to do is pull the cover, the bolt cover out, because it's going to be in the way of the electronic system when we pull that out. And all we're going to do for that is we're going to split the casing just by pulling it apart, and you will have in the rear section just here this little flat nut that sits in the moulding of the actual gun itself. And you're just going to split the casing with your fingers like that, and just pull this out and leave it somewhere safe. And then while doing that, while pulling it open, we're just going to pull the bolt cover out. Set that to one side. And for these next parts, you're going to need something fairly small. So I've got a little Allen key fitment here that I just use, and you'll see it's 0.050 of an inch. And it's just a small Allen key head, which is imperial size on this one. But anything around about the same size you can use. And then all we're going to do, we're just going to tap out the pin that holds the selector lever, like that. And as you tap it, you'll see the pin has just lifted at the top here, and you should be able to grab that out, which I'm struggling with, so I'm just going to grab some pliers. So we get the pliers and we just pull that pin outwards, then we're going to set that to the top right corner just so it's nice and safe, we know where it's come from. I'm going to pull the right side selector off. Just might need a little bit of persuasion, there we go. And then we're going to push that pin through, and that's going to enable us to remove the left side fire selector. And then we're going to need to do the same again with the fake bolt release. Now this one is spring loaded, there's a spring on this right hand side, so we're going to have to be careful when we remove that. But luckily the pin is on the left hand side, so we're just going to do the same again. Just going to push the pin with the Allen key. Go. I'm going to use the pliers just to pull that pin out like that. Perfecto. Take the left side fake bolt release off, and then this is the side that you're going to want to be a little bit careful with. So I'm going to bring it a little bit closer so you can see, and you'll probably see how that's just sprung down as I've done that. The great thing about this system, if I do this carefully, is you can set that spring in place back where it was when you're reassembling, and you can literally put the lever through and then it's already spring loaded, ready to go back in. So it's a fairly simple system to reassemble. So we're going to pull that pin out, and that spring won't come out unless the pin has been removed, because then we can angle that spring and pull it straight out of the receiver. So that's those fire selections done. We're now going to tap out the pin for the trigger as well. Same again. Just a quick tap. This one comes out much easier, and then we're just going to pull it. Now, depending on if your gun's been disassembled before, on these pins you do have one side that has a serrated edge, so you just need to be careful that you're not smacking that through the gun. If you do start to tap this pin out and it is getting stuck, say if you're tapping it right to left and the pin that's showing is nice and smooth, then you just have to push the pin out the other way for the serrated edge, and then it will stop you putting this pin back in future and it being loose. So we pulled that pin out, there we go, and literally we're just going to get the trigger itself and we're going to try and pull it down, and we're going to try and angle it forward as well, so like that. So what I did there was I pulled the trigger down while we're going it backwards and forwards, and then it falls out, and you'll see the spring fitment there. Don't be too concerned about this. I know you might think, oh, how the hell am I going to get that back in? Literally, when you're reassembling the gun, you can just put the spring back into place, and you can literally just lever it back up into place like that and pop your pin back in. So it's a very simple design, very easy to disassemble. Pull the trigger out, pop it to one side, and then we're literally going to be able to pull the whole electronic system there. Now this is actually the cut-off lever for the single fire. I'm just going to get that and we're going to pull it to the rear. We may have to give it a bit of persuasion here or there just to make sure it's coming out nice and centered. What you don't want to do with this is pulling it too tightly, because there's plenty of levers and springs and other bits of connections on here. So if you're pulling it too tight and it slips, you don't want any of this falling off and springs shooting off on the other side of the room that you're working on this thing. And you can see how the cut-off lever works with the trigger. But this enables us to use, these are your two pins which will put the gearbox connections on. But then this is the system here where you're using electronic contacts for the positive and negative. So when you put in your batteries or your adapters in the front, this is where they clip into place and sit on the front there. I am aware that you can get some very specialist lipos now that have these connections on, so you can literally just do a single replacement. I think about 500 milliamps, and they go in one of these adapters, and you can just use it as a normal battery. For ease of use, yes, that's going to be great, but you are sacrificing capacity because we're actually going to fit an 850 milliamp lipo. And I don't trust these connections with lipos whatsoever. I'd rather it be soldered on and then mini Deans on the other end where the battery is. So that's the electronic system out, so we're just going to put that down to one side, and you can see, if I grab you a fuse, this is out of a 416 recoil, you can see the size difference. So although this has probably been doing its job up till now, and a great little replacement if you couldn't find a fuse. Airsoft fuses are a little bit of a different size, so we're going to take that 13 amp fuse out and we're going to pop the 20 in there. What I'm probably actually going to do before I finish doing that is just push the connections in a little bit because it's a little bit loose. So let's pop those in, then got a nice snap on it now. So proper fuse there. Make sure you're using high quality fuses with these things. You can get the ones that have the really thin wire that goes through, that sometimes are rated up to 30 amps. To be honest, they're really fragile and they do break quite easily. So make sure you're getting something good, and this being out of a Tokyo Marui, I can't imagine it to be bad. So yeah, we're going to use that, and I'm going to just unscrew the front plate here and see what room we've got to work with. Let's take that off, put that to one side, and you can see we've got plenty of room to work with there. What I might actually do is, if I solder the joints onto these pins here, I might actually, I'm going to cover these terminals up as well. I'm going to want to keep it like this just in case it is ever reverted back to its stock state, but I am going to cover these up because, again, contacts loose like that is bad news for everybody if it does touch, so especially with lipos. So I imagine we'll probably cover those up, maybe put this front plate back on just to keep those connections out of the way of each other, and then we're going to solder the red and black wires to these connections here. Sorry, it was out of frame. So solder the connections to these, cover these ones up that aren't being used, and then we should be good to go. So I'm going to pop that down, and then we're back on front of the camera when we've got some wire, so we can get that wired up and ready for lipo use.
Dream for me, some parrot